Pratt in Walden Psychiatric Hospital. And I remember coming home that evening and calling my mother, who then was, I guess, up in her 70s, living by herself, reasonably healthy, taking care of herself, and rather essentially independent. And I told my mother what had happened, and Mimi had gotten sick, and she was in the hospital. And my mother, her next words to me were very simple ones. All she said was, "When are you coming to pick me up?" And I said, "Well, I'll be down to pick you up." I went down, picked my mother up. She had packed her bag, and she came out, and she stayed with me, with Millie being in the hospital, and took care of the house and my children for I guess Millie was in the hospital the first time, about 9 months. And when the day that we knew Millie was coming back and that I was going to pick her up, my mother fixed up the house, saw that everything was all right, called my brother, and had him take her home before Millie got home. She didn't want to be in the house when Millie came back to her house. She was a very interesting woman and good person. And of course, those years of Millie being sick were very difficult for everybody. And obviously, changed all of us, changed our lives. But that's the way it was. And everybody, I think, did the best they could, but I think they tell me that what happened was inevitable, but I guess you have to be in a position like that to realize that when it does happen, no matter how you think you've done and how conscientious you've been and how loving you've been, and everybody says it's not your fault. And when Millie died, I must say that I felt guilty myself, and to this day I can't say I've really gotten over it. But that's the way it is. There's only somebody who's been through something like that that understands. Oh well.
Oh well.
That's our secret.
Right. We'll be on the tape.
It's on tape?
It's on now.
Okay. Judy and I just have a little secret that we can't tell you. Anyhow, so after Millie died, that was in 1963, and again, there were very difficult times with the children trying to do the things I had to do, and it was difficult. Anyhow, I didn't date, I guess, for almost 2 years. And everybody at various times, starting at 3 months, and 6 months, and a year, people would say, "But now you can date. It's all right for you to date." And I used to say to them, "What do you mean it's all right for me to date? I mean, how do you know it's all right for me?" And they were going chronologically. And they didn't understand, most of them, that my dating was not related to a number of months that I was a widower. It was related to how I felt emotionally about getting re-involved. After all, the last 8 years have been a pretty tough experience, and I really didn't, I wasn't too anxious to get re-involved in something that might not be pleasant. And so I didn't date. I went around with friends of mine, and I made friends with their wives, and somehow or other that seemed to substitute for dating. And then, finally, there was a woman who worked at George Washington in anesthesiology. Mary Louise Levy, her name. She was a Jewish girl, French, and very nice. And
She was a doctor, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was a doctor, an anesthesiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember deciding, and I used to go in to see Cy Alfred and spend time with Cy Alfred, and I would see Marie Louise, and I would talk to her, and we got along, and I knew her from being in the hospital a long time. And I remember remember sitting in my house on Western Avenue. I remember sitting in the chair beside the little table where the telephone was in our little den, getting ready to call Marie Louise for a date. I was then 49 years old. And I remember sitting there and feeling like I was 15, asking somebody for my first date. It was the most peculiar feeling to realize that at the age of 49, I'm calling somebody for a date, to go to dinner or whatever. And I remember really actually sweating. I remember my hands getting very moist and feeling a little uncomfortable about picking up the phone the way I remembered when I was 14, when I was calling girls. And finally I did it, and I took Marie out a couple of times. There's one other girl I took out once or twice, but I really wasn't interested. And
These people used to invite you over to dinner and
oh
then
yeah,
tell
yeah, oh
you.
yes. During that time, it was funny. I was so naive. I really didn't realize what was going on in terms of the fact that obviously I was eligible, and people must have thought, well, you know, we ought to try to get him involved with somebody. So friends of mine and patients would call and say they're having a dinner party and they'd like me to come, and I'd say, fine, that's great. And I remember I would be in the office and I would say something to Bea like, Mrs. Jones, who's a patient, invited me to come to her house for dinner. And Bea would sort of look sideways at me and she'd say, don't you realize there's going to be a woman there for you? I said, no, it didn't even occur to me. Sure enough, she was right. So once there were two women, one on either side. And I remember being invited to somebody's kid's bar mitzvah, and sure, there was a woman, friend of hers, a widow lady, nice woman, down from Philadelphia, who was my date. And this woman really was trying to work on me, and I just wasn't ready. She was a nice lady, but I wasn't ready.
Who was that?
Bill, he died recently. He worked for Giant Food, and they were patients of mine. I can't think of his last name. Anyhow. And then Judy R. was friendly with Minnie Bernstein. And they were very close friends. And Jory and Cookie were very kind to Judy R. And John, I think it was going to be bar mitzvah. And Judy was invited to the bar mitzvah. And I didn't think anything about it, because I wasn't invited. You know, didn't know what was going on about it. It didn't mean...
You weren't invited?
No. But the night before the bar mitzvah, on that Friday night, I had yahrzeit for my father at Addis Israel. And John Bernstein, Cookie and Jerry's son, was going to be bar mitzvah the next day. And I went to my father's yahrzeit Friday night to the services. And of course, the Friday night before the boy's bar mitzvah, he comes and he says the Kiddush Friday night, and the parents are there, and the family is there, and then everybody comes up and says congratulations, you know, wishes them well. So I came up in the line, too. I know Cookie, I know Jerry, and I wish Cookie well for John's bar mitzvah the next day. And Cookie says to me, and you have to really know Cookie Bernstein to appreciate this. She says, Mark, she says, are you coming tomorrow morning to the synagogue? And I said, no, Cookie, I'm not. She says, well, you're coming tomorrow night to the party at the hotel. I said, no, Cookie, I'm not. And she looked at me, she says, why not? I said, Cookie, you didn't invite me. And Cookie didn't blink an eye. She didn't change expression. Oh, she says, Mark, she says, you know I meant to invite you. Now you come. And knowing Cookie, I believed her. I think that's exactly what happened. Just somehow she missed me. Didn't phase her that, you know, somebody else would have felt she was going to fall to the floor to say that to me, are you coming? And then I say, no, I'm not invited. Cookie didn't mean a thing. So I figured, well, I'll come. I mean, you know. And so I went to the I couldn't go in the morning because I had office hours, I think. But that evening, I got dressed up, and I went to the bar mitzvah at the hotel. And I didn't drive my car. In fact, I went with Fred and Annette Brandt. They called and said, asked me if I was going. I guess they just assumed I was going. And I said, yeah, I'm going. And they said, do I want to go with them? So I said, sure. So the three of us go. I think it was at the Shoreham Hotel. And I'm there, and I see a woman in a yellow dress, Helen Katz, and I walk over, and her back is turned to me, and I tap her on the back to say hello, and she turns around, and I'll go back in the story to get up to that moment, and she turns around, and she says to me, where have you been? I said, what the hell's going on? What do you want? So I said something, and then we started to talk, and we chatted, and we sat down and we talked, and then we decided we went through the buffet, we had dinner together. In the meantime, all these other women in the place are looking at us because they're seeing, that we're together. And to go back in that evening, Helen had been invited, and she was going with Joe and Paul Berman. And evidently, she had a big fight with Judy Kay. And then she was walking down, and she didn't want to go. She felt real uncomfortable about being alone. Byrne had died, and she was having a very rough time. And she walks down the steps, and her heel catches in the hem of her dress, and she tears the whole hem out of her dress. So she calls Joe Berman, says, Paul, I'm not going. I'm just not going. This isn't meant for me. I can't stand being alone. Paul said, you're going, we're coming, we're going to pick you up. Now just get another dress on and be ready. So she did. And then when she got there, she felt so uncomfortable that she had 2 drinks before I saw her. So when I touched her, she turned around, and she didn't have her glasses on. No, she did have her glasses on. But Paul had said to her on the way down, he said, Helen, he says, you have such pretty eyes. Don't wear your glasses. Helen says, I can't see with them. I'm blind with them. So Paul didn't say anything. So then we talked, and then we danced, and...
So why did she say to you, where have you been? Is it just because she was drunk?
Yeah. She was looking for somebody, and here I am. And I went over to the old widow Katz, and there she was. And then she turned around, and then we were together. And we just enjoyed we danced, we sat, we talked. And to show you, I was so naive. And we were really enjoying being together. And as we danced, Helen remembered what Paul Berman had said. And she took her glasses off, and she put it in the pocket of my tuxedo. And she did. Helen had very pretty eyes. So, towards the end of the evening, Fred Brandt comes over to me. He knew that Helen and I had been together all evening. And he said, rather apologetically to Morris, he said, Annette and I are getting ready to leave. And I stand up and I say, okay. Instead of thinking, I'll get a cab. I'll take Helen home. I'll stay with Helen. And I'll get a cab and we'll go home in a cab. Not me. I said, oh, okay, I'm ready to go. And I left. So I go home, and I'm getting undressed, and I'll find Helen's glasses in my pocket. So the next morning, you don't remember, Judy?
Yes, I do.
I
teased you about it.
You were down in the kitchen, and I remember you were cleaning up the kitchen after breakfast. And I called Helen, and I said, Helen, I think I have your glasses. Do you need them? And Helen was smart enough to say, oh, yes, I can't see without them. I didn't know then that Helen liked eyeglasses.
She had 20 pairs.
She must have had 20 pairs of glasses, I know now. But no, she was smart. She said, no, she needed them. So I said, well, I'll bring them over. And she said, well, come over and we'll have a little breakfast. So I came over, and I gave her the glasses. It was mid-morning. And I said to you...
I said, you had to go to Helen's house because she left her glasses, and you had to return them, and I went,
Uh,
sure,
yeah, you
sure.
looked at me. I remember you were wiping off the counter, and I said what you just said. You know, Helen, I have Helen Katz's glasses, and I told her I'd bring them back. She needs the glasses. And you were wiping off the counter, and you sort of looked up at me as if to say, this guy's not for real. I mean, he doesn't know what's going on. I didn't understand it at the time.
Well, I think I said to you, it's like leaving your wallet someplace and saying, oh, gee, I forgot my wallet.
Yeah. So,
Remember?
yeah. So I went over, and Helen had these little party bagels, and she had some Nova, and she made some coffee, and we sat in her den with a little table, and I'm eating because I'm hungry. And I'm looking at this girl, and she's not eating anything. She didn't eat anything. I'm thinking, this woman doesn't eat anything. And what's the matter with her? And then later, Helen said she was so tense and so excited, she couldn't eat. And then, I think, then I called her. Then it was a big snowstorm. That was the end of January. There was a big snowstorm, and Helen was just as dumb as I was. So I called her, you know how close we live, and said, Helen, I'm going over to the grocery store to get some things. Do you need anything? And Helen said, no, she said, I have everything in the house I need. And after she hung up, she thought to herself, dummy, here's this guy calls you, he's going to the grocery store, and you don't tell him you need bread, tell him you need milk. I mean, what's the difference? Throw it out when if you don't need it. But tell him you need so he'll come see you. So then, another time, I think I asked her, she said she did need some. It was during the same snowstorm, and I trudged over there from the house because I was afraid to go down that hill.
Oh, you walked?
I walked over with whatever it was I had.
That's a long walk in the snow.
Yeah. and then one time I left my gloves at her house, so she called me. So we were maneuvering back and forth without even realizing it. And then I called her one day, and I asked her to go to 3 different things. I think Morris and Lois Hamburger were going out to dinner with another couple, and they asked me if I'd become friendly with them, if I'd like to go to dinner with them. And I said, sure, can I bring a date? Well, God, they knew I wasn't dating. They couldn't wait. So I picked up Helen. This was about our first date, I think. And we went out to their house, and I remember, being there. I remember standing at the door with Helen, and you know how little she was. I remember her taking a real deep breath. Well, she hadn't been dating very much either. The only people she dated were people that Judy Kay really didn't like, and she didn't take care about them either. And we went in, and it worked out. And then I remember we went to that Chinese restaurant on Wisconsin Avenue for dinner. Helen and I were sitting next to each other, and we were holding hands under the table, as if they didn't know, the other couple. The other fellow was intrigued. And I think that was our first date. So I asked her to go to that. At the same time, I asked her, there was something else we were going to, and then there was a movie or something. So I asked her for 3 dates in one at the same time. And then Helen tells the story that after that I said to her before I hung up, I said, you won't forget. And Helen said, here I am, a widow lady, nice man's asking me for 3 dates at one time, and he wants to know, am I going to forget them? I tell you, we were just naive, both of us. We did dumb things like that in terms of, and I remember going over to Helen, it must have been on one of those days, and it was winter, and I had my jacket, my overcoat on, and a scarf, and she reached up to straighten my scarf, and I sort of backed away. She was very aware of it, which was part of my really not wanting to be involved. I was scared. I was very drawn to Helen, and loved being with her. I don't have to tell you, she was bright and many things. And we just enjoyed really being together. But I was afraid. And that was the end of by the end of May, we had become engaged. And
Whirlwind romance.
whirlwind romance. And we thought, I used to go over to see her, and I'd either walk over to where it was nice, because it was just 3 or 4 blocks away. And then on Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, and we would walk around the neighborhood. You know, we'd maybe go over into Rockford Park or go over by the stables, and we'd just walk up the street. And we didn't know it, but the mafia was at it. These women who lived in different areas. Cookie Bernstein told me.
Oh,
And I
really?
think Corky Wax did too. That we'd be walking up the street and they'd call each other.
Oh, they would?
Yeah, and they'd say, they're around, you know, they're going around into such and such a street. And they'd pick us up over there. And they had us in view the whole damn time. We didn't know it.
Oh, that's funny.
And we were affectionate. You know, I had my arm around Helen.
Oh, the whole circuit knew what was going on.
Yeah, and we didn't even think anybody knew we were dating.
Right,
You see?
right.
And here, everybody knew. When then we finally said we were engaged, we thought everybody was going to be surprised. Everybody said, "Oh, we knew you were dating. We knew you know, we knew you were
That's
seeing
funny.
each other." You
I
know.
remember Uncle Jerry's comment was, when current income meets depreciation, it
Yeah,
must be
that's-
true love.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He thought it was a good setup
Mhm.
financially.
Mhm.
What else? Turn it over.
Takes me a second to find the button now. Okay, here we go.
On camera.
Mhm.
So Helen and I courted, and it was interesting, I will say, to court at the age of 49. Helen was much, much younger, but she would be the one to say it this morning. And I think I almost got married in desperation. I couldn't stand that being up to 1 o'clock in the morning and getting up early in the morning, go to work, and at noon I'd be so tired I would say to Dee, my nurse, "I'm not going over to the hospital now, I'll go over later." And I'd go in one of my little rooms and sleep for an hour. And when the patients started coming in, Dee would wake me up, says, "You got patients sitting out there." I said, "Okay, I'll get up. So we were married in early June, and Helen, who was very close to Gene Littman, wanted Gene to marry us, and I thought that was fine. So Gene wanted to see us, you know, if he would, to talk to the couple before they get married. So we met Gene downtown one day near my office, and all 3 of us went to lunch. And of course, I belonged to Alice Israel, which is conservative, and as you know, Temple Sinai is reformed. So Gene at lunch said to me, "Is there anything particular in the service you want?" And I said, "Well, I want to wear a yarmulke." Gene said, "Of course," he said, "I'm going to wear one too." And we had no problem with that. We were married at Temple Sinai, and just the immediate family was there, Helen's family and mine. And then we went to Madison Hotel, and we had a lovely luncheon there. And then we left and went on our honeymoon. We went to Jamaica. And it was the first time I'd seen Helen's tenacity, which I'll call it. We got on the plane, and I think somehow we were the last people on that plane. And we were the last ones to get seating. I think what happened was we were there early, and then I forgot to go up and get my seating. So when they called everybody for the plane, there were 2 seats left, and I hadn't gotten seated. And so they gave us the last 2 seats. Well, my seat was a broken seat. Well, the one Helen was in was a broken seat. And you couldn't move it. And if you moved it forward, you couldn't move it back. She said, well, she wasn't going to sit in that seat. And the plane was packed. I said, I'll sit in the seat. I don't care. Let's go. No, sir. She made him, the plane wouldn't take off. She made him bring in the engineers, and they're underneath, and they got everybody's grumbling and, you know, muttering under their breath, let's go, we're 15 minutes late, we're a half hour late, we're 3/4 an hour late. So she's not going to sit in that seat. So finally she says to the guy, if you can't fix it, then give us first class seats. At first he said there weren't any first class seats. And finally, somehow, I think we got up, and the plane was full. And I think we sat in the seats that the stewardess, you know, sit in. But it was in first class. But Helen would not sit in those seats. and we were about an hour late getting off. That was my first introduction to Helen's tenacity about something. And we went to Jamaica, and Helen's brother Hank had been to Jamaica, and he knew of this little cottage right on the water. We were at Ocean Street, and it was a beautiful little cottage with a rolling lawn down to the water, and we had 3 in help. We had a maid and a laundress and a gardener. Now we didn't have much laundry because we had a lovely little swimming pool of our own. 3 bedrooms in the house. The maid lived nearby, and she came in early in the morning, made us our meals. There was no place to go for dinner, and it was really a marvelous little place. The laundress didn't have anything to do. We would have to look around to find clothes because we were sitting around and in bathing suits most of the time. And the guy that did the lawn, and he had a machete, and he did everything with the machete. He cut the lawn, he trimmed, he cut the bushes, all with a machete. And he was a big, powerful guy with great big arms. And boy, he was whipped. I would have liked to met him in town on Saturday night if he didn't like me. And we would go into town and take the maid with us. We had rented a little car, which we never used. I think we were there about 16 days. And we swam, and right beside the little swimming pool was a walled area, all covered with those tropical flowers, and that's where we would have our breakfast and lunch. And it was really just great. The maid didn't realize or didn't know that we were newlyweds, because after all, we were older people, and we talked about our children and that sort of thing. I think she got a little puzzled sometimes at the way we spent our time and where we spent our time on our honeymoon. But it was great. And then we came back, and from then on it was all downhill in terms of things that happened. But we survived, and as you know, Helen and I were deeply in love. We had tough years, but somehow or other we got a certain amount of pleasure out of it.
Anyhow, he had a